Napoli fans around the world, welcome to Napoli Talk. The transfer market is starting to finally wake up. We have bought a few players, but there's still some things that we need to figure out. Is Zielinski staying? Is Veiga coming? Is Koopmeiners coming? In this video, we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about how Napoli is shaped to go into the first game of the season. But before we get into that, I want to announce that I launched a Napoli Talk predictor game where you can choose the number of goals that we and the opposition score, who scores for us, who assists, how many cards. There will be monthly and yearly prizes that come with it. But guys, please make sure that you follow the instructions and take a good read on the Google Forms. Guys, I do ask for a small contribution. Details can be found on the Google Forms. I ask this only because I know that this will take a lot of time and I want to make sure that it runs smoothly, and then I want to upgrade this to something a bit better than Google Forms, hopefully next season, but I just gotta make sure that I build it up to that first. Anyways, link of this predictor game is in the description below. It is 100% run by me and 100% for you guys, so make sure you take a look at that. Alright, now let's get back to the main topic of this video. How are Napoli lining up heading into this season? And there are three scenarios that I've picked out. I mean, there's a million obviously in the transfer market. You never know what's going to happen, but these are the main three and they all focus around the midfield. And the first one is Zielinski stays and Veiga comes in. The second one is Zielinski leaves to Saudi Arabia and Veiga comes in. So it's a direct swap in terms of coming and going. And then the third option is Zielinski leaves, Veiga comes in, but also Koopmeiners comes in. What impact will that have on Napoli? And by the way, one rule to this game. For me, this season, Elmas has to start. Now, I don't know if that's what Garcia will do, but if I was the Napoli coach, after so many seasons with us, he has proven that he's got the minerals to play for us, to start for us, and it's time to give Elmas that chance. So in all the scenarios that you're going to be seeing, Elmas starts. All right, let's start off with the first one. Zielinski and Veiga both at Napoli. Now, for me, Zielinski has to start in midfield, and we can't touch what was working so nicely last year. So that midfield of Zielinski, Lobotka and Anguissa stays as it is. Then in defense, I've put Nathan as my starter. I know that Juan Jesus is going to start against Frosinone and maybe in the next 4 or 5 games, but I really do wish to see Nathan become a starter for us throughout the year. And finally, as I said, because Elmas needs a place on this team, I'm putting him on the right wing because at the end of the day, that's where he's actually quite effective. And I know that some people may think that Elmas is more of a midfielder. I think Garcia thinks that as well. I know some people like to see him on the left. I personally really enjoy him on the right. I think that's where he had the most effective contributions for us, including, for example, that assist against Juventus where then Raspadori scored on the left-hand side. Big hint for who's in our subs and where they play. I think Raspadori's best position is on the left wing as Kvara's substitute. That's the position where he got the goal against Juventus. That's the position where he got one of the late goals against Spezia last year. That is, for me, where Raspadori plays. I don't know why Garcia has been trying him in midfield or trying him on the right. I just think that he is Kvara's natural replacement, and that means he gets at least 20-30 minutes every game. Then with Veiga and Cajuste, our new midfielders, they would go and occupy those spots in our subs 11 with on the right Gaetano. Whereas on the right wing there is only one spot for either Lozano or Politano. Because of Lozano's contractual situation and because Politano has played more minutes in preseason, I'm going to favor Politano. That means that the three big losers of this team who don't find a space, not even in the subs 11, is going to be Lozano, Zerbin and Demme. But what happens in the African Cup of Nations, you might ask, when Osimhen and Anguissa will leave? Well, In this case, Lozano goes and takes Politano's place in the sub-11. Politano will take Elmas's place on the right wing, and Elmas will drop down to where Anguissa is. Meanwhile, Simeone will replace Osimhen centrally. Raspadori will become our new sub number 9, and then that allows Zerbin to be our new sub left winger. Again, no spot for Demme in this team. So why haven't we got rid of Demme yet? Well, you'll see it in the next scenario. In the next scenario, we lose a midfielder. Zielinski leaves and Veiga comes in. So how does Napoli look in that situation? In this case, listen guys, I know Veiga is a baller, but I don't think he's quite ready to start for us yet. If that were the case, Napoli would have paid the release clause and not messed around for 2 or 3 million euros if they thought that he was a potential starter from the get-go. Instead, I think Elmas will drop into that Zielinski position, which opens up a spot in right wing for Politano, who graduates into the top 11, and that also graduates Lozano into the subs 11. That means that then you've got only Zerbin and Demme, who are the losers, who don't make it into any of these two teams. But again, what happens when Anguissa and Osimhen go to the African Cup of Nations? In that case, with Zerbin, we already know what happens. He takes Raspadori's place, Raspadori takes Simeone's, and Simeone's takes Osimhen. But now, because we've lost a midfielder, the person that will take Anguissa's place is actually Cajuste, who graduates the starting 11, and then it's Demme that takes his place on the bench. Alright, but there's a lot of talk about Koopmeiners coming in, and I don't think we're gonna have Zielinski, Veiga, and Koopmeiners all in the same team. If Koopmeiners comes in, that's when you know for sure that Zielinski is out. So let's look at that scenario where him and Veiga come in and Zielinski is out. In that scenario, Koopmeiners, who is Serie A ready, he's already 25 years old, he's got important statistics to his name, he has to start. You need to find a place in the starting 11 for Koopmeiners. That means that he will be Zielinski's direct replacement, even though that's maybe not his natural position. He likes to play a bit more central, but you gotta find place for him in that starting 11. And that means that Elmas, in this case, goes back to being a starter on the right wing. What happens? Politano gets demoted now to the subs 11, and Lozano gets demoted back to being a loser. We're basically back to the same situation as if Zielinski stays and Veiga stays, except replace Zielinski with Koopmeiners. And again, what happens when Osimhen and Anguissa go to the African Cup of Nations? Well, it's a similar story to that first scenario, where Lozano then finds a spot in the subs 11, Politano moves up to right wing as a starter, Elmas drops down in Anguissa's place, and then we know what happens with Zerbin, Raspadori, Simeone, and Osimhen. And in this case, again, Demme is left out. Now, what does that mean? That means that Demme is only useful in these three scenarios if Zielinski leaves, Veiga comes in, and no one else. But until we have that situation sorted, Demme is staying, because you never know. Now, for the game against Frosinone, let's talk about the starting 11. Now, Anguissa is unlikely to start that game because he's coming back from an injury. Same thing, I believe, with Mario Rui. Oliveira has done more time in the preseason. So I go with Oliveira on the left, and instead of Anguissa in the midfield, it's going to be Elmas. And I don't think that Zielinski is going to Al Hilal before this game. So I think our midfield will be Zielinski, Lobotka, and Anguissa, with Zielinski getting a farewell in that game. In defense, like I mentioned before, Juan Jesus is likely to start because he's just more experienced. Nathan, it's still way too early for him to really be a starter in this team. And that means that up top, in place of where I would love to see Elmas, you will have Politano, who has got more minutes under his belt than Lozano, because obviously we said that Elmas is dropping back into the midfield. Now guys, in all of this analysis, there is one extra variable in that midfield which will possibly ruin all these great graphics, which is Gaetano leaving to go on loan. Now, Gaetano He's not super young anymore, but he's definitely old enough and experienced enough to play at least for a mid-table Serie A team. There's a lot of talks about him going off on loan. I think that would be good for his development. I don't think he'll see a lot of time on the field, even though he's part of this subs 11. I think realistically, you're not going to field all 11 of these subs the same amount. There's going to be some subs that will be regulars that come on every single game, and other subs that are only there in extreme cases when people are injured, when people are super tired. I feel like that's still the role that Gaetano plays. Having gone over all of this, and I know it's super confusing, but I predict a midfield where Zielinski leaves, Gaetano leaves, and Demme leaves, and Veiga and Koopmeiners come in to replace those three. But guys, these are just predictions. They can go right or they can go wrong, just like the Napoli predictor game. Make sure that you check it out right now, because the deadline to participate is 1 hour before kickoff on Saturday. Make sure that you smash that like button if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe for more Napoli talk. And as always, Forza Napoli sempre. Ciao.